So it's like, is that a delusion? I don't think so. It's like, is that delusional to say that? Is she in a delusional state when she's making these proclamations? Yes. Is she in a state where she has no memory of what she's doing and is like absent of herself? Because Kanani is a sweet and caring and loving mother. Like I saw her in May, and that's, when Jennifer and I went to Florida, that was the whole thing. Like we saw this baby, and there was this bright, happy, joyous, cared for child. I've been around enough babies to where I know you can tell when they're not in proper care from their mothers. And there was no sign of that whatsoever. Like this baby was completely carefree and happy and joyous, and Kanani was an excellent mother. She was attentive, she was warm and nurturing and loving. She would never strike her husband or the sister wives in the way that I saw her later. She would never do these things. Like, I mean, it was just very apparent, and that was in the child. Like, you could see that in the child. It's like, if I had an aunt who was a little on the loud side, it's like even when her children were little, they were a little on the loud side. You know what I'm saying? Like, children imitate their parents. And so you see it in this child, and you're watching Kanani care for this child, and they're all like fine and wholesome. There's like a lot of wholeness in their group, wholesomeness, and the baby was just fine. Like I wouldn't have continued a relationship with these people. The foundation, because I like Z, I did, and when I first met him, he's a highly intellectual individual who likes to, and we shared a lot of world views that are based on fact, and science, and understanding of teachings and things like that. So we hit it off. But
let me ask you. I don't want to get too far afield
Yeah,
what the original. That's okay. Sometimes you get going and then we don't even remember what the question was.
Full scope.
I get it.
Yeah.
So I want to narrow back in on. You said you had seen her punch herself or injure herself?
100%.
Had you ever seen anybody else restrain her or physically assault her?
Not like that.
Okay.
There was this one time where she tried to jump out of a window in the place where we were staying in Virginia Beach, but and Z hugged her, basically put his arms around her and stopped her. But I've seen Z sit there and take licks to the face and do nothing. I've seen these other girls be abused by Kanani in her delusion. Like I say, she never did that. And when she would come back, she would start crying, and we'd talk about what had happened and how she was attacking people, and she'd start crying, and have an emotional breakdown. She'd just be like, I'm so sorry, and she's just not that way. Kanani's not really violent like that. She doesn't hit. I mean, I had never seen her do that in a clear and I only saw her do that when she was losing her mind, as I say.
Okay.
And this just continued to get more and more intense and severe as time went on.
All right. Now you said, I want to go back a little bit to the incident on the 25th of November.
Yes.
So you said Sandra Torres intervened, that she said things about Hannah's going to be taken away, she's going to have the baby taken away, and that sort of set Chloe on this path where she believed that she had to protect Hannah.
Yes.
How did that incident end on the 25th?
The incident ended, so like I say, this woman that, is sitting here, Sandra Torres pulls off on the side of the road to rescue this woman, so she would say, and this woman who's sitting here willingly and knowingly gets into a car with her husband and her child and her sister to leave, to escape this belligerent, seemingly psychotic, definitely drunk, and threatening of gun violence individual. And Sandra Torres, like I say, Sandra Torres was trying to block Z from leaving. Z's like, we're out of here. Sandra Torres goes into Z's car. Now, this is a random person. Keep in mind, this is just some woman that pulls off on the side of the road, decides to make this her business. Kawani's screaming about how she wants to call her mom. We're all standing around. Let her call her mom. No one's trying to prevent her from doing this or do anything except run in the road and cause harm to herself. Please, here's the phone. Like, here's the phone. Call your mom, you know? She never did call her mom. She was just being belligerent. And so is Sandra Torres. And then Sandra Torres gets out of her car and goes over to Z's car and takes the keys out of his ignition. So keep in mind, this is a stranger who pulls off on the side of the road and then goes into a man's car who's being calm and cool and let my wife call her mom if that's going to make her feel better. Goes into the car, pulls the keys out of his car and says, "You're not going anywhere. You're going to jail. We're taking this baby away from you. You guys are disgusting people," like all this stuff. To strangers. She's doing this. Z takes his keys back from her. "Ma'am, this is my property. Give me my keys back." She starts slapping him and assaulting him. They get in the car and leave. Peggy stands, like after they had pulled like a 50-point turn to try to get past this woman, because she's like moving her car to try to block them from leaving. She pulls over to rescue somebody and then tries to stop them from leaving in their own will, and tries to like make a huge scene out of it to try to like hurt them in some kind of way. She pulls off, and then she starts, and then Peggy is standing in front of the car, and she basically, Sandra Torres started attacking Peggy, beating the crap out of her, slamming her head up against the hood of the car. And I sat there and watched that. And now Z and Kawani and Shaylik had already pulled away at this point. So I'm just standing there watching Peggy get her ass kicked, pretty much. And I was like, I sat there and I watched for probably like a little bit too long, to be honest with you. That's how I felt about it, because of the way she was getting beaten by this woman. This woman's like very tall and broad-shouldered Nordic woman, and Peggy's this 5'0" petite woman who is not a fighter. This woman has a violent history, you know? And so she's, you know, assaulting Peggy and beating the crap out of her. And so I put my body in between Sandra Torres and Peggy, and then Sandra Torres punched me in the face once, and I went like this, and she punched me in the face again, and I picked her up and I put her down on the ground, and I got in my car and I left. And that was the end of that day.
What do you mean you put her down on the ground?
I picked her up and I forced her body to the ground.
Okay. How would you describe a slam? A push?
I picked her up and I dumped her to the ground. Yeah.
You picked her up
yes.
physically off of the ground?
I physically picked this drunken, belligerent woman who had just assaulted 3 people and was threatening us with gun violence up off the ground, slammed her down on the ground, got in my car, and I pulled off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were the police ever involved?
Yes, they were.
Okay. When you were there, were the police involved?
No, they weren't.
Okay. Did you call the police?
No, definitely not.
Why not?
Because I rarely find that justice comes from these types of circumstances when police are involved. And I mean, I just like don't really like you guys.
You've told me that a number of times, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's okay. We don't have to like each other.
That's okay. And that's not personal. I just find that like the legal cult
sure.
and the legal culture, you know, we use that word cult to describe culture. It's just a shortened version of that word. I find that the legal cult is, it brings injustice more often than not.
Were you all collectively as a group sort of not call the police type of people?
Peggy was definitely not call the police type person. I asked her, I was like, you know, you should really call the cops. You know, like she's got a black eye and she's all busted up and hair pulled out of her head by this woman. And I was like, man, you should really call the cops. She's like, I'm not calling the cops. She's like, I don't want anything to do with them. We'll just let this go. We'll just be gone with her, you know, and like we'll just go about my life. So
you said you got in the car and left, and when did you become aware that the police had been involved?
That's a good question. I can't remember. Like days later or something like that, or I can't remember honestly when I became aware.
Did you ever get interviewed or spoken to about those circumstances of what happened on the 25th?
No, I never did. Nobody ever asked me about this. This is the first time where I've been able to speak plainly before a court or before anyone involved in that openly about the events of that day.
Okay, so you left. At some point you became aware that someone else had contacted the police.
Now, when Nimsy died on December the 8th, I gave an interview where I spoke about this circumstance to a woman named Tiana Cruz, I think is her name.
With Canton Police Department?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I told her about what had happened and how, because, you know, that day was kind of like a breaking point, and it manifested into, I mean, looking at this from like an outside perspective as best I can, you know, without, you know, it's like I'm very emotionally attached to the baby and to, you know, what happened. But it's like that day, Kanani's delusions go from I'm in danger, these things, to the baby's in danger, to the baby's going to die, they're going to take, to a dead baby. You know, like that's what just happened. You know,
Okay.
so I spoke that very clearly, as far as I can remember in my interview, because I was just so in shock that day. Like I couldn't even believe that this is happening. Like it was just like.
All right. Let me ask just directly. From that incident on the 25th, did you get charged with anything?
I did.
When did you learn that you were being charged with something?
I got charged with an assault on Sandra Torres.
And when did you learn that that was the case?
April of the following year.
April of 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Did you have any contact with law enforcement between November 25th when it happened and when you got arrested in April of 2021?
No, I did not.
Okay. So you just find out because you have a warrant for your arrest?
Yeah, I got pulled over.
You got pulled over and you
Yeah.
got arrested from a warrant from the incident on the 25th?
That's right, from
Okay.
6 months earlier.
Okay. And what happened with that case?
Well, I wanted to go to trial because I thought that I could win in the name of self-defense, you know, and protection of Peggy Schindler. And Peggy was going to come and testify in my trial that she was being attacked belligerently. Z and Shaylee were going to come and testify that this woman was threatening them and being crazy, and she reeked of alcohol. And she's a known drug user because I know her.
Mr. Spillers, I'm not trying to be
Oh.
disrespectful, but we just got to rein it in. So
Oh.
what happened with your charges?
Oh, I got a misdemeanor.
Okay.
I ended up with a misdemeanor.
Did you plead guilty?
I did plead guilty pursuant to Alfred Law.
And what does that mean?
Alfred Law, I was told, means that I maintain my innocence, but I was being held in jail. Like they were holding me in jail, and I couldn't afford my bond, and so I waited for years for a trial for that, and they never gave me a trial, and so I finally pled guilty to a misdemeanor. And I think that they just gave me a misdemeanor because they knew that they would lose in trial, and they didn't want to afford that opportunity.
So you did a time served misdemeanor.
Time served. They sentenced me to 75 after 22 months of incarceration.
You were in jail for 22 months?
I was in jail for 10 months, and then I made bond, and then they re-incarcerated me after 8 months. They held me in house arrest for 8 months.
Okay,
All
so
over
that's
this.
house arrest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All over that.
And then you pled guilty under Alford
Yes.
Which
to
is
be
just-
released from jail.
to a misdemeanor.
Do a misdemeanor.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. You mentioned that after that incident, Chloe started having paranoia surrounding needing to protect Hannah. Did you ever witness, perceive, or hear her say anything about ever believing Hannah was a danger to her?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever hear her articulate that she felt threatened by Hannah in any way?
No.
Did you ever hear her say that she needed to defend herself against Hannah?
No.
Okay. Was all of the things that you heard with relation to Hannah her needing to protect Hannah?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about the sort of response of Shaylig and Gami and Z and you whenever Chloe would have, whatever you want to call them, episodes.
Sure.
What was the response amongst the group in terms of helping her?
Well, I think mostly it was like trying to find patience, and trying to find a way to keep her calm and get her to, at some points, like stop hurting herself. Those are the times where I've seen Z like hold her arms because she's punching herself in the face, or she's striking somebody else. And I have seen him like hold her hands, be like, honey, calm down, calm down, calm down, and that was pretty much it, like I never, we would all respond in our own way. I tried to just be as diligent and patient and kind as I could, and try to talk her, because like I said, she would be, she would come, Kawhi's a pretty open person, like she talked plainly and openly about, sexual assault by her own family members and, all of these things that had led her to be this like fractured person, individual rather. And I would, just be there to listen. That's what I was getting at. Like I would just be there to listen to her about how she was feeling and if there was anything that I could do, and try to avoid that right hook. If she was trying to, kick and scream, and but she only did that to me a couple times.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that incident on the 25th where she ran out in the road.
Yeah.
After that happened, between then and December the 8th, did she go spend time with her parents at her family's house?
No, she didn't.
Was there ever a period of time where
whoa. You mean after Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought you meant from October.
No. The incident on November 25th.
Yes.
And she said, I want to call my mom.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
She did say that.
Did she ever go see her mom and stay with her mom?
Yeah, actually, they
incident?
came later that day. Eric and Renee. That was like the second or third time that I had met them.
Okay.
They came to pick Kanani up.
On what day? The 25th?
It was either that or the next day.
The 25th or the 26th?
Yeah, right around there. I can't. It's 4 years.
Okay.
So you're at like.
You're doing fine. So either on the 25th or the 26th, Eric and Renee Driver came and picked up Kanani.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did they come to?
They came to Peggy's.
To Peggy's house? Okay. And that was in North Carolina?
Yes.
All right. And where were they living at that time? The drivers.
Oh gosh, Tennessee.
Tennessee. So they went from Tennessee.
Knoxville, as far as I know.
They went from Tennessee to North Carolina, and they picked up Chloe.
That's right.
All right. Did Hannah stay with you guys?
She stayed with Z.
She stayed with Z. Okay.
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did Chloe go back to her parents' house?
Yeah, she did for like a few days.
Okay. And when and how did she rejoin the group after she went to her parents for a couple of days on the 25th or 26th?
I'm pretty. She kept in contact with her husband, and then I think he went to go pick her up after that.
Okay. And you said, were they still communicating? Z and she were still communicating?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he went to go pick her up. Do you know when that was?
Shortly after that, a few days, something like that.
Okay. A few days after Thanksgiving?
A few days after Thanksgiving, yeah.
Okay.
I think she got really jarred by that whole thing with Sandra Torres.
Okay.
Like I say, there was like a lot of dramatic shifts in her wording and the things that she would say after that.
Okay.
And that was it.
All right. And then tell me about Thanksgiving. Where did you spend Thanksgiving 2020?
Oh, I was there. We did Peggy's, and then I was at my parents for the rest of the day.
Was Chloe around for Thanksgiving 2020, or was she with her parents?
That was that day. That was Thanksgiving Day.
What was Thanksgiving Day?
The whole event on November 25th.
The 25th was Thanksgiving Day?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure that was Thanksgiving Day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it would have been after Thanksgiving that Chloe went to her parents.
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
And then you said it was a couple of days maybe she was with her parents, and then Z went and got her, and she came back to the group?
She came back, yeah, she did.
Okay. And when she came back, what was her demeanor like?
Pretty much the same, really. She's a regular Kanani a lot of the time, even though at this point in time she had become kind of degraded. Like, she was like, her whole, like, air had become different. Like, she was, like, really, like, frustrated with herself. Like, she was just, like, frustrated with what's happening, and she was sad. You could tell. And then there was like this whole different air about her that I think, like I said, was part of the whole interaction with Sandra Torres, you know, where she just became, I don't know, she just got this idea in her head about Nimsy after that. There was just like a lot of...
About protecting Nimsy?
Protecting Nimsy, yeah.
Okay.
And like the danger to the baby, that they're going to take the baby. All of these things that had never really come out of her before that I heard, you know.
Okay.
And I mean, I wasn't with them like 24/7, but I was with them a lot, you know, like a lot. So.
Okay. You said that she first sort of started having those types of, I don't know what you want to call them, episodes, paranoia, whatever it is, in September of 2020?
Well, no, it was before that, actually. It was really during the summer. Like, Z, you know, I was talking to Z pretty regularly. We would just, you know, talk about all kinds of stuff. And he spoke of his wives openly, you know, with me, and how Kanani had really started, it was really in July when he began to, because I think it was in June that I met them at the river that day.
With her parents?
With her parents.
Okay.
And she was fine that day. Like, she was, you know, behaving normally, providing excellent care for Nimsy, being an excellent mother. And, yeah, I mean, gosh, you know, I just...
And let me ask you this. At any point, did you become aware of her getting any type of, like, counseling?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not.
What's that?
No.
Okay.
She did not.
Did you know about her doing anything on Zoom?
No.
Okay.
I did not know about that.
Okay. Did...
Was she doing that? I don't know.
If you don't, I have to ask the question.
Okay,
so if you don't know, that's completely fine.
I didn't know that. No.
Okay.
I didn't know.
And we already talked about kind of the group's views on drugs and sort of the holistic approach.
Yeah, Z did not want her to be institutionalized. That's for sure.
He did not want her to be institutionalized?
He did not want her to be institutionalized, probably for the same reason as like the institutionalization culture probably doesn't offer, like, you know, she's just surrounded by 3 or 4 people who really love her and care about her. And instead of just being a patient that gets doped up with medication and spoken to once a day for an hour by some doctor that she doesn't know, Z was really trying to do this in more of like a wholesome family way to offer Kanani healing.
When she was just her normal self, what was her relationship with Z? How did she interact with him? How did she treat him? What did you observe during this time?
It was like we went to, when Jennifer and I went to Florida, it's like there's like a lot of love there.
Talk to me about like Thanksgiving time, December. What was the nature of their relationship around that time?
I mean, sometimes she's around and it's the same. Like there's a very loving nature and a very like, you know, a very, there's like a lot of companionship, and between her and the other girls, like, you know, I remember we were at my house right before, because they had found a house in Florida,